Yeah, so in this video, I'm just quickly going to talk about the common mistakes that people usually go through when they're, either starting out or when they are looking to scale. And everyone goes through these problems, and I think they are even almost unavoidable because even though you inherently know you should not do this, like you still find yourself doing it. So, education does help. It does help to know these pitfalls so you could avoid them. Um, but some are not very easy, not as obvious as I would make them. So obviously you can probably see my screen and see these things. I should probably make this. I'll probably make this bigger. Yeah. So number one would be the first one, underpricing your services. So business owners often wait for outside permission to raise their prices. Scaling to high revenue levels like 50k a month is extremely difficult, if not impossible, if you are charging less than 3 to 5k per offer. Now, this is understandable when you're starting out because when you're starting out, you do have a lot of mental roadblocks you have to overcome. And I myself had to overcome this before. When I started this in 2022, I I did do the usual things people would do. So people would dip their waters in different businesses and niches. So maybe you did drop shipping, other people probably did crypto. Just ended up doing SEO because at the time I think it was booming a bit. There were some new updates, and then I don't know. It just seemed if you could deliver SEO, then you would be wanted in the market. So I did YouTube SEO, and then I later transitioned to Google SEO. But that's by the point. And then when you get into the numbers, do tend to scare you. So you a big deal that comes up would be imposter syndrome. So this is obviously when you think you can't, or when you think you don't deserve to be in a certain place to be doing certain things because you're not quite there yet. And you know to a degree that's actually kind of true. You're not really there yet when you start, so you try to supplement it with your education, and you do tend to downsell yourself. Hold on, let me just make a quick Miro board here. I do like to draw and explain as I'm going along. So just coming back to it's number one for a reason. You should probably not realize this as undercutting people on price. I know it sounds intelligent when you're starting, but this is one of the dumbest mistakes you can, simply because there's always somebody that can go lower than you. So if you think, okay, I can charge my service at, if my competitor is charging my a service at 2500, I'll just make it 2000, and more people will come to me because I'm selling at 2000. But what you don't realize is that the people who are able to undercut on price have a lot of capital behind them. So you're not a venture backed startup. You are a business owner that is optimizing for cash flow, which I assume you are, because that is the goal of every primary business. It's not so much profit, it's cash flow. I think people don't usually understand it. Like, cash flow is more important than profit, but that's probably another video for another time. Number two is very important, and I'm just coming to realize number two. So that would be underestimating the required volume. Hold on a second. I really do want to explain this. I prefer to. Okay, no, it's not Myra, it's Zeit. No, it's actually Zeit. I think it's a Zeit's board. Yeah, Zeit's board. So coming back to that, people do tend to underestimate this, and I think this is actually the second biggest problem after number one. In fact, I would put this as the first problem um, people make when they are starting out. I think the general consensus is that people tend to try to get certainty, which is good. So you would go online and then search for, I'm sure you've probably done this. How many, cold emails do I need to send to um, book X amount of prospects for my calls, or how many cold calls do I have to make to get a meeting, or what niche is probably best to target? And these are all good questions, but the data that you see from them, the information that you probably get, it's usually wrong. So it's not usually correct. It's usually more than it's usually too optimistic. This is a problem. So a lot of the data that you get is very optimistic. So if you think that you're going to need 10 um, cold calls to get one sales call, this is very far from the truth. I think sources usually say something about 100, but then this also matters on your list quality, who you're targeting, what industry you're also targeting to, how you say it, your offer. So a lot of things go into the a lot of things go into the process of actually making these calls, and you find out that it's not really 100. It could go to maybe 150, and you weren't really prepared for that, and so you get discouraged very fast. Um, I think I can probably share this. I started to branch out into other industries because I'm just trying to get as much data as I can, and the industry I was targeting is, and I am still currently targeting this industry because it comes back to what I was talking about before, which is cybersecurity. So right now we're targeting a bunch of industries as well, just to find other markets that our offer will work for, which is deal generation in and of itself. So we generate deal flow for these B2B companies as long as they meet our criteria of, having a certain LTV. They have to be selling something high ticket, so the margins work for us and for them, and other things like that. So just scaling out and branching out, and then the data I found was that you need, like, let's say connect rate is probably like 2%, which is actually not true. Connect, I think yeah, I can probably show this. Yeah, I think because we were also tracking this as well. So this was the tracker sheet for the um this was the tracker sheet for the 15 hours. Um, Out of 2,368, that's actually the goal before I decide whether to close it down or keep on pushing volume, because you need to have a threshold. But my point is that the people, you guys, people's threshold, especially beginners, people who are just starting out, is too small, so they give up too early. But you also don't want to persist in a failed situation, so you also need to know when to pivot and then quit and to reiterate. So that threshold right there is at the 2,368 cold call. Then I'll be able to find out whether this is worth pursuing or not. But so far, no meetings have been booked from this, and I'm still collecting data as to why. So I'm actually targeting the founders themselves. I prefer to get a yes or no decision, off the bat of it. So you just reach the final boss. I don't really like to, play around and call middle management, because if you think about it, if you've done this before, you know that these guys are more likely to say yes, and they do tend to waste your time on the call. So I just need like a straightforward answer, like, is this good for you or not? Why is this not good for you? Does it make sense for us to pursue this further? If it does not, I move on. If it does, I see how I can help this person. um These numbers are not exactly where I'd like them to be, but they'd probably be much, much better, much, much better by the following month. So total number of dials was around 459. So I've made about 400 dials so far. 36 connects. Dial to connect ratio is 7.8%. It's not really the 10% that you would see online on the internet. It varies. Like if you were to search the average dial connect ratio for cold calls, it's way more than this. Now, granted, I don't have enough data to, make a final point, but my point is, do not underestimate the amount of volume that you need to do in order to get results. I think this is very important. This is usually what tends to separate people between, getting results and not getting results. Because momentum is also an important part of that. So, I digress. So, I think the third part is overcomplicating the business. You are very much likely to do this in the beginning, and this comes back to human nature when it comes to human beings themselves. So the average human being is more likely to complicate a simple matter because it just sounds nice. Like, have you learnt a new word before and then tried to use it in like a social situation? It elevates your status. It makes you look more prestigious. It makes you sound smarter. It makes you look more sophisticated. So it does all these things to you, but it's not very good in business or in war. Any of those two things, business and war, which is like the ultimate game of life and death. It just doesn't really work. So you should probably avoid this trap. You should probably avoid this trap when you're starting out. Um, it's very easy to make that mistake. So a good example was me. So a few years ago, like when I made my own website, I spent I spent like 2 months. I spent like 2 months trying to perfect that website. I spent almost a week trying to pick out the colors. My logo, I spent like a month trying to do it. And granted, you're just starting out. You want to be as good as possible. You want to take things seriously, in quotes. But then these things don't really matter. And I also think that people do these things and they tend to leave out the elephant in the room, which is nobody knows you yet. When you're starting out, the function of the primary lever that you should be pulling is the lever of acquisition. So nobody really cares about your website if nobody's going to see what your website looks like. So it doesn't really make sense to focus on that in the first place. So just avoid overcomplicating your business because you're going to scale it at some point. So if you make things very complex when you're small, things are going to break when you go. A lot of things you probably do now are probably not needed. And one other thing I would let you know is that err on the side of elimination, not automation. I have an engineering background, so how I look at things is probably a bit different from how um, other business owners look at things. I prioritize a lot in efficiency and just making things work as smoothly as they should. I tend to err on the side of eliminating like steps and processes rather than automating it because the initial hurdle of automating kind of makes me try to rationalize not doing it because the upfront cost for automation is quite high. So you really need to make sure what you're automating is useful. If not, it's going to be wasted time. Like, trust me, err on the side of elimination, not automation when you're starting out, which comes back to that. So I think number 4 is stopping the learning process. Now, I don't assume you're not learning because you're watching this video. If you've somehow made if you somehow made it to this kind of video on YouTube, you're probably doing something right. Like, because this video does not have like a lot of views. I'm going to be posting every single day, yes, but if the algorithm somehow brought you to this video, I would not say you're not learning, because I assume you're really in the trenches if you made it to this kind of video. So when owners hit 20,000 to 30,000 per month, and they often develop an ego. That is true. So but I don't really think it's an ego. In most cases, it's just complacency, which tends to wipe out your momentum. And trust me, once you lose momentum, it's very difficult to get back. So you should probably avoid that. This creates a knowledge gap that freezes their income, which is very true. So, but I do think that um, when you are, in this process, it's better to err on the side of learning a lot than to err on the side of not learning at all. But I think the ultimate thing that you should be doing is just taking more action. And one thing I just want to, let you know here is that 20% of your work should be on learning, while the 80% should be on taking action. There is nothing I want to watch on YouTube that I don't inherently know about what I'm currently doing, because I've just done this for so long and I've made a lot of mistakes on the way. Like a lot. Like every single thing that is written down here, I've made that mistake. I've made that mistake. So I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I don't need to watch like a YouTube video like the one you're watching to know. I've lived all these things, so it doesn't even really matter right now. The thing that's going to elevate me and take me to where I want to go is the action that I take, not really the things that I learn. The thing people say that you learn by doing, no, which is true, but then you need a good schema. So use YouTube, use courses, use mentors to build a good schema. So a schema is just like an interconnection of knowledge. So this is one piece of knowledge, this is another piece of knowledge, this is another piece of knowledge, another piece of knowledge. These are pieces of knowledge. So how they connect together is a schema. So if this rings a bell to you, this is obviously how your brain forms information. This is how you learn things. You build schemas of, and this is actually how AI works. Computes neurons and all that. This is actually just what you're supposed to be doing. Doing things builds this more than watching this video. But you need this video to be able to form the circles. Like you need this video to form the circles, but then doing it is going to help you know how the line connects to each other. Because when you start out, the line is like very very weak, very tiny, like it probably dotted. But then when you continue to do something, it gets better, the lines become more strength. Sorry, what's going on? The lines become more strengthened. I know they get stronger, they get thicker, things like that. So that's where you should be erring on. I think number 5 is getting distracted by lifestyle. So I think now I don't really relate to this one. This happened to me about 3 years ago when I started making a few bucks from the internet. So when I started out initially, so lifestyle creep is really a thing, but you know, I believe in God, and I really believe that He really humbled me during that period. And I think that everybody that gets to a certain stage, they get this period where they feel like on top of the world because they're making money that they've never made before. So they think they can do all these things now because they have all the money now. But then you find out that that money goes away very quickly because it turns out that you could not manage that money properly. Whatever you can't manage will be taken away from you and give it to somebody that can actually manage it. So that's just one thing I've learned. So I'm assuming you're not like a child. You should know how to manage your expenses properly. Don't let lifestyle creep in. Now, if you've not made any substantial amount of money on the internet, then this can happen. But if you have, you probably know what I'm talking about. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So the next one is artificially niching down. So this one is very tricky. This one is also very important because this was the this was the most recent problem that I went through. In fact, I just showed you now um the the things I'm doing here. So I found that I'm artificially niching down. So what did I decide to do? I decided to branch out to other industries because you don't have enough data to make a decision to stay in one industry. As long as they meet the requirements, all they have to do, if you're running any kind of business, be it an agency or a B2B or a consultancy, I think they are just, I don't think, I know they're just basic rules that just need to be fulfilled. They are requirements. If these requirements are met, then an industry should be good for you to go. There are other things like experience, you being comfortable there, but I'd probably neglect that. Like the base form requirements is this: they should be able to afford your service. Their AOV or the LTV of their customers should be at least 3 times more what you charge. So it should be 3 times more your LTV. For example, if you serve people in cybersecurity, and let's say they have an ACV of 100,000 per year, and you charge, it's okay for you to charge about, let's say, 6,000. Um, maybe your LTV can be like 20,000, and I'm assuming you're not just getting them one deal, so you're probably getting them like 2, 3 deals, per month or per quarter, depending on how your offer is. So they should be making money. Like they should be in an industry where they make a substantial amount. Um, so which answers the question whether they'll be able to afford your service. Yes, they can. Your offer should be a useful investment, preferably a must have. So things like deal generation, lead generation, sales. These things are a must-have for a business. So a business cannot do without them. So if you're more of like in the automation industry, that's like a nice to have. But then this is where your intelligence comes to play. You can structure it and make it more useful. Showing ROI on all these things. So it just depends on the way you frame it. So you either frame it as making them more money or saving them more time. As you go up the ladder, if you're dealing with, let's say, consultant, let's say you're dealing with um, business owners who have a lot of capital, but then you're targeting them specifically, so they prefer to save more time. Everybody likes to make more money, but I've noticed that if you can save these guys time, you will inadvertently make them more money. So they would make more money by you saving them time. And then I think that's all. Maybe if you want to put a number of it, maybe their own LTV should be greater than 15,000 USD. So their LTV for their own clients should be greater than 15,000 USD. They should be able to afford your service, and then your offer must be a must-have, not really a nice-to-have. And then you have experience in that industry, or you have experience in adjacent industries as well. Um, so I think that's it. So you can add one or two more, but that's kind of it. You just know by your guts, depending on where you are now. Like I can't speak for you exactly, but you would probably know what adjacent industries to go into. Um, the seventh one would be entitlement and laziness. This is probably very common for beginners. This comes down to number two. So this just comes down to understanding the fact that it takes a lot more work than is required to get results. It takes a lot more work, and then when you find out that it's a lot more than you thought, you get upset, you get angry, you let your source know that what you said does not work. You give up, you go back to what you were doing before. And I put myself in situations, and I think the grace of God that I've been able to come out of it. You should probably put yourself in more do or die situations if you're facing this problem, because this is essentially war. As we speak of it, there are other people that are doing 10 times more than you, and probably getting half the result that you want, but they're willing to put in the work because they know that later on in the near term they're probably going to get a lot of return for their work that they've been putting in over the years. And you make a couple of calls and you're tired, you send a few thousand cold emails, and you give up. When I started, I sent, I read somewhere that just send 10,000 emails and then you'll be able to close all the clients you can. That wasn't true. I did send the 10,000 emails. It was to a staffing and was it staffing and recruiting? I know I did send. I think I split it, staffing and recruiting, and then construction SaaS. Both failed miserably. I sent a whole 10,000. I think it was a 2 email sequence. And trust me, like, my copy was good. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. You know, short to the point. Like, speak their lingo. Don't talk too much on the email. Avoid links. Like, I know all that stuff, and it still did not get results. Was I discouraged? Yes, initially I was, because I thought that maybe if I just send this amount of emails, I'm going to have everything I want. I know it doesn't really work like that. You should be willing to put in more work than is required. There's no magic number out there. Or actually there is, but it's not the number that you think it is. Your number is not my number. My number is not your number. Like, things just fall into place. So this is where things like probability and randomness come in. And as I've said before, like, I believe in God, and then He's the one that handles things like this. Like, you can only do so much, but then you need to be diligent. You need to put in the effort. If you're already, like, around 20 to 30k, same applies here. At 20 to 30k, I do expect you to be running paid ads to scale, because cold email has a cap. Cold email is good when you're starting off from 0 to 10 to 30, but then when you scale out, like when you're about that 30 to 50, you run paid ads. Simple as that. So I personally, I cold call, because I like feedback faster. And obviously I can send 1000 emails a day, but I think doing the cold calls help with talking and rapport, and building sales skills off the fly. I know people don't want to do it exactly, but I put myself in that situation where I have to. Like, people don't want to pick up the phones, but I do. Like, I do Tuesday, Thursdays, and Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. I think if you go back to the spreadsheet, you notice that I don't really call. Like, I'd never called on Friday. I should probably update. I never called on Friday. And why did I not call on a Friday? I mentally blocked myself. Like, I told myself that nobody really picks up the phone on Friday. People mentally check out. And yeah, that is true, but are you really going to let that be getting to you? So I think I assume that for you to find this video, you're kind of an intelligent person, because this is not like a woo woo beginner kind of video. Like, if you manage to get to this kind of video, my assumption is that you're a fairly intelligent person who is really looking for answers. And you've probably gone through these problems here, and then, truth be told, you kind of know the answer. So just has to come down to you to taking the required action, and being patient enough, and then diligent and strong to keep on going. Because when things get tough, you really need to push through. Like, I can sit down here and tell you stories and all the things I'm going through right now, trying to make this work, but trying to scale it to where it is now. But I know I don't have to do that. Probably another video. So I think if you found this helpful, I don't know if it's worth you know leaving this as a document here. I'll probably update this document, add some other things, add some other info. You can check the let me say link in the description or whatever. Check it down below. I'll probably leave this document here, and I think I'll bring back my newsletter. So if you find this useful, I talk more about this in depth in my newsletter. So I do run a newsletter. I did run it before, but then I stopped at one point because I was trying to scale this. But as I'm bringing back YouTube, I think I'll also bring back the newsletter. So you can join that as well. This document will be here, and then if you're having problems scaling as well, I think you can also just hit me up. I should probably link my Instagram down below. I don't really use Instagram because, again, like, the goal is to get results. So I do check my Instagram once in a while, but I'm kind of focused here every day. If you do need help, scaling and all that, you can text me on Instagram. I do reply, do respond if I check my Instagram. I think apart from that, that should be all. I'll be posting every day. I can't ask you to watch any other video, because as of right now, as I'm recording, I don't think I have videos. But you should do like and subscribe and all that stuff, so that you do know when I post. And then I think that's it. Take action after watching this. Don't watch this and move to another video. Write something, like, just take any action after watching this video. So all these 7 things that are written here, which one applies to you the most? Like, I'll be upfront with you. The one that applies to me the most is number 6. So what am I doing? I'm branching out. I'm moving into other industries. I'm currently moving into staffing and recruiting, SEO. So SEO agencies, because I have experience there. I'll just move into there, and then we might offer SEO agencies, staffing and recruiting, and then there's one more. And consultancy, so advisories, high ticket consultants. So these are the 3 other industries I'll be moving into in tandem with the cybersecurity, so I can gather more data to see what works and what does not. Then I'll be able to scale even more. I currently make about my average DAOs was 40, but it's getting to 300. It's going to be 300 as from tomorrow. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so as from Monday it's probably going to be 300. By the grace of God, it's going to be consistent there, because I have set up a system for that. I know how many DAOs I make per hour, and I know how many hours I have to DAO, so I do know how to crunch that as well. So yeah, I think that should be it. Yeah, if you made it so far, I take you as an intelligent guy. So as I take you as you are, take action on what you've just seen. I just told you my current problem is number 6, and I just gave you the actions that I'm going to take to doing this. If you have problems at all and you need any help, Instagram, as I've told you before, I'm going to update this document so it has more things. Then you can check it down in the description, if I remember, but I most likely will. So